be doing so immediately following this race.
Alright, Azder has started off in the sanctuary, but is immediately leaving. That chest that's up there? Not important. We don't care.
Moving on to the west, ChristosOwen, however, will be taking the 20 rupees from Link's house and immediately heading back to the sanctuary, it would appear. Christos seems to be trying to have enough rupees as he enters Kakariko, something that either Azder has already accounted for or may not be considering. And there is absolutely something we need cash for here.
Well, question is that something actually worthwhile? In the meantime, Azder is, well, there's your cash right there, and some bombs. We don't need to purchase bombs. And having an extra bottle... Oh my gosh, Blind, what did you leave behind today?
Well, they did say he was a bandit, as far as canon lore goes, so, this does seem pretty appropriate. Wow, he even stole from the magic bat. What a sick and twisted thief.
Well, you take from the bat, you receive a curse. But now that curse has just been passed down. And speaking of down, we're heading into the well. What treasure do we have here?
Mentioning the curse, this seems eerily similar to how Paper Mario handles the curse. It's really a blessing, isn't it?
That's exactly right. It's similar to how it worked in there. Lantern there, but hold on a second.
Lamp plus flute, Azder definitely making the most out of his Kakariko visit. We'll have the ability to immediately take advantage of that, and where he goes, not as clear. We are seeing some extra checks here from ChristosOwen, taking some time to pick up some extra arrows. He may be thinking about where he's going to find his bow in respect to that.
Alright, Tavern has something good. Extra health. As far as which, extra items our runners may want, heart containers are typically the big thing, maybe followed by some 300s. And of course, having extra money for bombs, always a good thing.
Yeah, we saw this last race as well. ChristosOwen, in the opposite direction. I believe Christos bought the bombs last time around. Azder will be this time around. Now, there are a couple of places they could find more, but Azder may just be trying to stockpile for later, seeing as he does have a surplus of rupees. He has more than enough for Zora if he wanted to go there. Because there will be a couple of opportunities with ruby crabs along the way.
That is true. However, we are going to see Agina, or Agina, depending on how you pronounce the fellow's name, all the way out here. We have a card or treasure somewhere buried here, and today it is the hookshot.
Well, Azder, despite picking up the hookshot, decides to not be too attached to the desert area, pulling himself away from there quite quickly.
Well, there's not much we can do. We can't enter Desert Palace right now. So it actually makes sense to save quit and head over to... this may be a mini Moldorm cave play. Certainly have bombs, and hookshot's good for taking them out.
Now, I'm curious to see if either of our runners are going to be doing any fake flippers. They do know where the flippers will be, and they will route around that. There is some navigation in the overworld to be spoken for in that regard. But we'll find out pretty quickly if we see either Azder do a save and quit or Christos when he makes his way through.
Ah, nice. First sword and first mail upgrade. That'll certainly help.
So for those of you asking in chat about the timers, due to the nature of the spoiler log study period of 15 minutes prior to the race, and also in syncing up the streams, it's not always perfectly accurate on the timers. Everything is done based on SRL timing. So at the end of the day, they do start at the same time, even if there is a ping difference between where they're located physically.
And, oh boy, Ice Rod Cave. If we ever had spoiler logs in normal races, you only head here if you sense something is good. I would say the Moon Pearl qualifies as more than good.
Certainly going to prevent them from having to do a hop, skip, and a jump in the Dark World. And as their last race actually did forget his Moon Pearl, so I get the feeling that was one of the first things he looked for in his spoiler log.
However, it's a little soon to worry about entering said Dark World right now. We are missing a glove, another glove, or a hammer. But, wow, this is an early play over to the Paradox Cave area. Treasure senses must be tingling.
Absolutely, and both of these runners not only good at the game, but also good at reading. They seem to have both really hit on the same notes here. You can see ChristosOwen pulling out his flute. He's not saving and quitting, so it's presumable that he's probably heading up the mountain as well.
Oh, come on, Crab. Don't give Christos that much of a hard time.
You know, those are some of the most lethal pre-Aghanim enemies in the Light World. They do 2 full hearts of damage, so Christos was actually very close to a death there.
And flippers were picked up, but let's look at the bottom. So our runners know where all the crystals are and how we enter Misery Mire and Turtle Rock. Both Ice Palace and Swamp Palace, oh, there's the hammer, are pendants. So this tells me that we have treasure in one, if not both of those places.
And we haven't seen a whole lot of divergence between the two of them. A couple of different priorities as to where they go first. We saw that ChristosOwen actually doubled back to Mini Moldorm Cave. Presumably he wanted to take advantage of his better equip at that point. He did pick up Moon Pearl from Ice Rod, so that may have just been down to preference. I was really surprised to see that neither of them fake flippered, as there is a location they can benefit from.
Yeah, perhaps it's the routing. And speaking of routing, well, Spiral Cave, Azder's walking through Spiral Cave. We know it has some type of stuff. Hopefully, it's good enough. Look out, Azder's in Spiral Cave. Look out, Power Glove in Spiral Cave.
Well, that does tell you something about Spiral Cave's length, is that if you can get through an entire verse walking, you know, certainly not a place you'd rather be without the boots, but Azder absolutely will go through there. It is 100% worth it to pick up that glove, and that is one of the major gatekeepers of the seed, so very wise decision from both of them to be up here.
Well, that gives us our Dark World access. As, hi chat.
We also notice that both of our runners are strategically skipping a lot of these chests. We've seen Christos in the last race actually pick up about 21, or something like 21 extra item locations over Azder. And there was a decently significant time difference related to that. They finished 2 minutes apart from each other. So we'll see if Christos this time around has maybe studied his log a little more closely to find opportunities to save that time. Mind you, Azder is actually able to also chat with everybody in chat during his race. A talent I can't possibly speak to. That's incredible to me.
Now, as Azder is right now in Thieves Town, Christos did mention pre-race, 15 minutes can be a bit of a panic to deal with. I mean, I myself have tried these races in the same conditions. First one I ever did, I misread my notes and never got Pegasus boots.
Yeah, that is certainly a struggle to go through an entire seed without them. And we saw really early boots last race. Neither of these runners have had the means to collect the boots just yet. I'm sure that that's a high priority item for both of them, though. As soon as they're capable, they will be there.
Speaking of high priority, that boss key is definitely required just to access the back. I do want to say there is at least one good thing here, besides the crystal, of course. But will Azder find it in a timely fashion, or do we have to go all the way around and just to beat it out of blind?
Well, thankfully he doesn't have to do the dungeon blind. The boss, however, definitely. Azder is having a significantly less friendly experience through Hellway compared to last race. He had boots for the last one and was actually able to execute a perfect God Pixel dash. But we'll settle for surviving to destroy the hole in the wall or hole in the floor ahead.
I mean, if this was the Randomizer, then breaking the hole is enough. But remember, we have to break the hole and quote-unquote rescue the maiden in order to actually activate the boss. So that means hitting one of these lizards, for instance, bad idea. And, oh, that compass pickup on Christos' side, we know the big key has to be in the first 4 chests, but if you don't know every single chest location and how it's worded in the spoiler log, that can potentially cause a few extra checks.
Truth be told, given ChristosOwen's intimate knowledge of the logic of the randomizer, since he has been involved with that for a very long time, I get the feeling that he simply didn't know which chest it was during his parsing of the log. I doubt that he would have had trouble, figuring out which one's which. But yeah, as you mentioned before, 15 minutes is a very brief window to try and get yourself ready for these races.
Yeah, so what happened there on Christos' side, mixing up map and compass chests, which it happens to everyone, especially those who are much more familiar with the randomizer.
I'm just blown away that they can do this in under 100 items, because I would definitely be at 150 by the time I finished, even with all the spoiler log in the world. As a reminder a little bit about the format, both runners, unlike most randomizer races, can actually watch the restream and each other's streams and participate in chat. Ooh, nice hallway for Christos. But so they have full access to as much information as they want to glean, as long as they're not using some kind of special parsing tool for the spoiler log that assembles it a certain way. We kind of frown on that. That's kind of, gaming it.
Speaking of gaming, what's the pun of the day? I'd peg you as a fan for the hammer. Yuck. Okay, that's actually a genuinely good one. I can't do my sarcastic yucks on that one.
Well, so there's another funny nuance of the spoiler log tournament. I'm not sure exactly how many text boxes have been replaced, but the spoiler log tournament is actually run on a special instance of the randomizer website that allows us to distribute the spoiler log itself. I believe that they've moved a few text boxes around as a result of that. We saw a funny one again, but we did just find a mirror, so as they're reflecting on his victory here in Thieves Town, we'll hopefully find his way to his next progression with that.
We did also find a Master Sword upgrade in the Maiden's cell, so we have, well, bare minimum of what we need, at least if we wanted to take the long way to take out Ganon. Granted, we still have to get what we need in order to take care of the other crystal dungeons, and pendant dungeons if we need the pedestal. But for now, Azder is thinking about Southern Hyrule. And, oh! Swamp Palace. Swamp Palace is one of the pendant dungeons, green pendant at that, but flippers and mirror on hand has to be treasure. In the meantime, Christos is now dealing with the genuinely funny blind here. Of course, funny does not necessarily mean invincible or indestructible.
I was honestly kind of surprised to see that both of our runners kind of messed up the blind script on Phase 3. They both had fantastic Phase 1 and 2, but one of the most difficult hits in the entire fight is that last one that you get, or the second to last one, as he rounds the corner back from the left to the right. Very difficult thing to nail down perfectly, but really if you're practicing your blind fights, if you can get the first 2 phases, you're going to do fine pretty much every time.
Alright, skipping, I want to say that's the map chest. So, what we need is somewhere. Or it may just be a minor red herring and we need the green pendant, but I know Azder knows where they're going. Christos, I believe, following suit.
Yeah, one thing that we might see as an actual difference between these runners is what they actually stop to collect. Oh, unfortunately for Azder, killing that Stalfos was not fast enough. As it turns out, if you kill one of those Stalfos, the water fills faster in the room due to lag.
I never knew that, but that's actually good to know.
Certainly not something you want a detour to do, but if he's in your path, you should always kill that red Stalfos.
Right,
Well, Azder's not wasting any time in here.
Yeah. Actually go-moding Swamp Palace, which... nice feeling if we're able to pull it off. Christos, meanwhile, picked up some extra money, possibly for safeties. Ooh, heart container in the drained portion of the reservoir, but we may get that later, we may not. Depends on comfort levels for our runners.
So we see a question in chat about how routing is different in a spoiler log race. I mean, naturally, you're going to see what you need to do, and you're going to route more efficiently based on that. However, in a spoiler log race, you have only 15 minutes to make this up, so it's not actually that uncommon to miss stuff. Azder, however, does know his locations astutely and picks up his second glove upgrade in the waterfall room prior to Argus and nopes his way out of there real quick.
Well, with that, full Dark World is now available. So let's check out the Haunted Wasteland. And with Mirror prepared, heading straight to Desert.
I really like this decision. Having that portal available to you right there allows you to, swipe the one important item in here and make your way out with a mirror, of course. So this is the most optimal possible desert routing. Had they tried to do this by getting a book first, this would have been much more annoying, and getting the Meyer stuff done at the same time would have been a considerable time loss.
And good news? I don't think we need to worry about the torch there if we were able to get a small key.
I know exactly why Azder misread that. You're going to find out in the next room. See, he thought that was the compass room up top of the north end of the dungeon. That was actually the map room. Very simple thing to get across and mixed up. But he is getting that key, though, for the... well, I guess he's going to try to skip a room. We don't even need to do desert until later. I guess he could save a key he can pick up later if he really wants to.
So Azder did pick up the big key, and just now the Fire Rod and Ether. You got yourself the Southwestern Dungeon Care Package. Well, almost. We still need the Cane of Samaria, don't we?
Absolutely, we do. There's an interesting question in chat. For a blindfolded run, you're actually way behind the curve on that. Parisian player has actually done a full completion of the game, or just say NMG run, blindfolded. It has been done before.
And a Checkerboard Cave. Oh, that's a nice thing to pick up. Tempered Sword.
For a while, I was thinking that we wouldn't bother, but with that Mire Shed, it seems just kind of like a foregone conclusion.
Well, Tempered Sword is certainly, great sword level to have if we're able to pick up golden. As long as it's on the way, great. If not, well, we'll certainly be satisfied.
We get to see some relatively normal execution going through the rest of the desert here. We do have a couple of kill rooms to get through. We see a really nice key dash from Azder there. As a reminder, if you haven't, kind of seen the inner workings of A Link to the Past, everything's kind of lined up on a coordinate grid, and if you nudge past an object on the floor, you're likely to hit the door at the same time as the one frame where you can kind of get away with not colliding with it. We call it a key dash. We're going to see excellent execution from both of our runners. Their knowledge of the game probably trumps most of the people in this tournament.
Alright, Azder is hoping for the one-cycle land mows. Ooh! The first one dove down quickly, so did the third. Rude! It's okay, we'll take second cycle.
Yeah, definitely a lot better than most people have with their NMG runs. A much more difficult boss in that scenario. You usually would be using bow. We do not have bows, so that fire rod is a godsend. And this time around, Azder does take the time to pick up his half magic. He did not in the first race.
Alright, taking off again. This time, flute to 3, always the standard. In the meantime, Christos trying to complete Desert as quickly as possible. Good old Skullwoods. We have a crystal here, so we will definitely pick it up. Azder, mixing up rooms there, but looks like Azder wants to get this place done and dusted.
Yeah, I have my fire rod.
Hold on a second. Azder senses some treasure we may have not accounted for. And inside the switch room, the silver arrows. We will take
that's
them.
definitely a fantastic time save. Silver's alone definitely going to save time just from combat, but that doesn't even take long to do. I think really the only way to make that more efficient is to have Kena Samaria walking in.
However, I don't know if we'll be getting that for a bit. So it kind of makes sense to get the Skullwoods knocked out of the way.
Yeah, and this is the true nature of spoiler log tourney is really just figuring out which of these decisions actually makes sense. We're seeing a really nice Mummy Hellway from Azder. A pretty difficult screen overall as far as execution goes, but breezing through it, only barely getting Bunny Beam.
Fortunately, just taking damage, restores the debunification process. And we are ready to take out the annoying Mothula. While Christos is... Oh, treasure at Bonk Rocks! And over here we have the bow.
And as Christos picks up his very important bow, absolutely a required item. Azder, in the meantime, having some trouble with the spike room for Mothula. Normally a pretty straightforward fight, but Mothula's just being an absolute jerk.
More like the conveyor is, but fortunately, that conveyor has now been out-jerked. Another crystal achieved.
Hey, half a heart's still an opportunity, and Azder did not shy away from it. Like a moth to the flame, he was able to burn him off the corner and complete the fight. Gotta really admire his, well, I guess you'd call it courage under fire. It's a very difficult scenario to actually keep yourself together when you have half a heart in that fight.
Christos, in the meantime, set up to enter Palace of Darkness. He has to sense a treasure. And going bow side for it. Well, good thing we just picked that up.
Yeah, and so that Bonk Rocks decision earlier, just before this dungeon, kind of put into better context by that.
Well, not only that, but Eastern Palace is right there. Just mirror, knock it out.
We will, of course, see a Silver's advantage for Azder, although, given what we're looking at here, it's probably not going to be significant for this dungeon, at least. Will be a slight time save for Armos, for sure.
Alright. We are at the, one of the two, overlooks, but Christos wants to head into the arena. And at the stadium seats, there's Arcana Samaria. And for Christos, that's enough.
Yeah, certainly not having a penchant for pendants today. Taking the time to go in there, just not, giving the bosses any kind of visit. Um, I'm sure we saw this from Christos as well, but as they're also getting a really nice Kiki skip, as you might call it. It's not a skip, but if you were turning around and you pull Kiki closer to you as you enter that cutscene, you can actually save several seconds because of how slow he moves.
Now, Astor senses something in the shooter room. Christos did not go here. And inside, the big key. What was in the big chest? So,
Don't mind me frantically checking my log.
So either Astor senses something, or that could have been a misread. I mean, misreading the spoiler log is something that runners have done, so it could be a misread, it could be a galaxy brain play, as many like to say. But right now, Christos basically skipping over everything in Eastern, just hoping to go, go, go. And, okay, not every day I see someone go top route to head to the big key chest.
It just occurred to me, as they're picking up that big key, I almost thought for a second he was going to go for the boss, thinking maybe he was thinking something is at the pedestal, but no, he does know about it as well.
Okay, so it was either a misread or maybe just a force of habit. This is a unique tournament where you are given access to... You're told where everything is, and sometimes if you're just so used to, playing normally without the spoiler log, you're like, okay, this chest, always check it, it may have a key, and it's like, oh, wait, we didn't need this key, never mind.
Well, we do also get to see on display just how powerful the Tempered Sword is. We're not even bothering with bow and arrow for these Gorias. And Christos using his boots to good effect. Unfortunately, as he enters the Zelda game room, he does actually take a cannonball, but should be in good position to finish up his Armos fight very cleanly. He has nearly max arrows. He even gets a favorable drop.
Yeah, no need to break the pots this time. Alright, taking care of the Armos nightstands. No, just frames off.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you if you miss one of the top arrows on the first Armos, it's very difficult to actually still manage to finish before it gets to the enraged cycle. It is possible with some very high level movement, but even then, I mean, it's a hard thing to adjust to.
So now Christos is the first one to finish Eastern, and is now heading in the water, perhaps to see the bird lover under the bridge.
Wait, the bird lover?
You never played A Link Between Worlds?
Okay.
It's a friendlier title to me than what most people like to call this person. And if I am to use... It's a camper.
He's a pleasant pauper.
There you go. That's how you do it. Pauper with the Quake Medallion, we can now enter Turtle Rock.
Makes me wonder if he's plotting against the Kingdom of Hyrule. After all, a quake underneath that bridge could be devastating for their infrastructure.
Don't remind me. We've already... okay, so fun fact. One of Christos' rivals is, Andy. Both Andy and I live in the same general area. We had to deal with, crazy bridge shenanigans a few years ago. That's all I will say about that.
Well, we wish you the best crossing those bridges and hopefully having minimal interruptions. After all, broken bridges are certainly the domain of mountains and not of, rivers. So ChristosOwen, having crossed his way over one just now, actually will find his way to his next progression. Azder, having finished up Eastern Palace with his silvers very cleanly, is actually heading back to the Mire area.
And is going into Misery Mire to hopefully knock it out, while Christos is at least going to activate the Turtle Rock entrance. Will he go in? And uh-oh. I see a frozen Murderdactyl. Will Azder please the crowd? No.
No, unfortunately, we're not going to satisfy Walrus Prime out there, who originated the bird toss. Of course, there's also variants on this called the bird carry. You can just simply kill the bird. This is a notorious culprit for making this particular room, Mire 2, that Azder's in, very difficult. One of the most compelling reasons that people do different routes, say in NMG, is to avoid taking damage entering this dungeon, and sometimes people will completely change their route and still take the hit anyway.
Alright, Christos going into the, I call this the torch roller room, since you need to light the torches to go in, just so I don't mix it up with the other roller room. 2 chests here, how many useful? Well, small key to get in, but... Okay, it is not every day we see runners intentionally get the cape. That means we have something in either Spike Cave or Bumper Cave.
That's an interesting thing you're bringing up there. Spike Cave, we would not have a lot of means, or at least health, and certainly not the, well, they do have a fairy in a bottle, but that's a very tight window based on that health pool. So actually, I'm curious, maybe that is actually something. Although typically that would lead us to think there was Bumper Cave, but I mean, I didn't consider both of those angles. That's astute observation.
Well, Christos is going to Bumper Cave. Because, I mean, maybe Graveyard Ledge. But no, this is Bumper. Already made the hard turn north. So, up here, we have the Book of Mudora. Oh my god. Well, do you wanna do a fetch quest? We just did a T-Rock dive. What we need could be anywhere. Pull out your hair. I'm sure it will be fine.
You know, I'm impressed by that note.
Not every day I actually hit that.
Hey man, I mean, you did it without vibrato too. Classical singers everywhere are saluting you. Unfortunately for ChristosOwen, Murderdactyl's saluting him, making sure to give him a pat in the back on the way out. Really making sure that he will not have a fairy to consider any kind of damage boost strats going forward. We'll see if he can recover from that. He probably wants that safety for later.
I'm actually going to mark the fact that you said I have a decent pitch there, because no one ever says that.
I'll give you credit for that note. I'm not a critic.
Vitreous unable to criticize anyone anymore. Down the eyeball goes.
Yeah, certainly going to fall prey to the most devastating weapon in the entire game. Arguably, possibly even the entire series, next to, say, Ancient Arrows from Breath of the Wild. Silver Arrows do the equivalent of 100 damage in the damage tables of this game, effectively 100 times more than your fighter sword. It is absolutely lethal, and only Vitreous and Hokuboku, the Pokies that we see, are able to withstand an entire single Silver Arrow and survive. Unfortunately for Christos, getting trolled by a fire snake trying to get his key dash, which is a very convenient one in Skullwoods. But, you know, RNG can still prove to be an issue. His fire rod dashes are extra crispy, though. That Mummy Hellway was nice.
So the only big obstacle left for Christos is everyone's favorite, yet not so favorite, Moth. Hold on a second, I just noticed something. Christos did not pick up the silver arrows.
You know, it's a brutal calculus to make. Now, those silvers were very convenient to pick up, and they were certainly a time save for Ganon. Christos may have overlooked them, or he may have felt so confident in his ability to do Tempered Sword spins. I mean, you only need 12 in the last phase. It's not that significant of a time loss if you have half magic and, you know, Fire Rod, which may very well end up being what he was thinking about. Personally, I would have picked him up.
Well, Christos is leaving them behind. And, at this point, we can safely confirm that the pedestal is dead. Shall we reveal what was on there, or shall we save that for later?
I think it's going to be a nice surprise since Spoiler Log has so few things that are genuine surprises. We should leave that for the credits, I think.
Very well.
Although, Chad, if you'd like to guess, it's your best opportunity. You never know what's actually on that pedestal until you see it.
And, wait. Oh, Azder was thinking about it, but did not want the ether tablet. Not yet. Christos now in Meyer. And, oh, right, Azder doesn't have the book yet. So Azder believes ether tablet has something. So yeah, cape to book to what looks like ether tablet.
And if that is required for him, that's a pretty hefty time investment to get back up the mountain. I mean, we were just talking about what silvers will cost Christos, but that's not that much of a difference between the two. It takes a minute or two to get up that mountain.
Well, Christos already had to do it. So in this case, it's not so much a time loss, except for the, okay, can I, no, I don't have that, dang it!
Yeah, that could prove to be a source of frustration later. Of course, as a reminder, the series, Azder is up 1 game to nothing on Christos. This is a best of 3 here in the round of 32. This is the beginning of the bracket stage of this tournament. We did have 3 qualifiers that all of us were competing based on. I say all of us using the royal we. I didn't actually qualify myself or attempt to. But this format is going to produce a very interesting finals because it's going to take a lot of different skills that these runners have to pull from in order to make it that far. Well, there's Kate for Azder, presumably leading to that book. And yeah, I'm presuming that's where he's heading next.
Once we get in the correct position.
Yeah, it kind of seems like Christos wants revenge for the lack of spookiness earlier. Oh, he gets it.
I still do not completely understand this, Can you attempt to explain what Christos just did? Because that's one of the newer glitches that I just don't get.
My pleasure. So there is actually a couple of unique things that happen with sprites in this game. There's, I believe, either 9 or 10 total slots that the game can use for sprite data. One of those variables is an altitude variable. Not all weapons and items use it, not all sprites even use it. But typically, stuff like that gets refreshed when you use that slot again. They just rewrite over that slot. So altitude, we manipulate, actually, to take advantage of a quirk with the fire rod. The splash damage can be manipulated because it doesn't use altitude normally. So we set the value with the bird when we flew into the area. That gives it like a high value that will allow the splash damage to hit way further north than it's supposed to. And that'll actually trigger the switch through the wall. All you have to do is make sure you hit a sprite that's active on the screen with the fire rod itself, and it'll displace the fire rod shot.
Question. Is that also why, when we had the ability to perform the bird toss, that it wasn't done?
That may have actually been a factor. I'm not entirely certain, actually, to be honest with you, if that impacts it. The bird that we use for the duck may actually be a different sprite, seeing as that's an enemy, the murdered actyl. I'm not entirely certain on that. There are backup setups that you can do. You can toss a Cane of Samaria block into a pit to give it the highest possible altitude value. It does require a different manipulation of sprite slots. The reason why we dash before we place the block is to manipulate which sprite slot that altitude is stored on. We switch it so that we don't accidentally reset it when we place the block. Dashing actually does use a pixel slot.
And, well, there you go, folks. I think we can safely say at 39 minutes 22 seconds, Azder is in go mode. At least it looks like it. But heading into Tower Hera, so it's either a quick treasure check or just knock out the crystal.
I'm not sure if Azder's picked up Quake. It doesn't show it on the tracker, but that would be the only other item I can think of he'd be short of.
Azder has Quake.
Yeah, so then he is in fact in go mode.
And same with Christos, both going for Tower of Hera first.
Yeah, so this puts us at pretty much a dead heat between the two. This is an impressive, reunion. 40 minutes into this race, and they're pretty much toe and toe again.
So while our runners are currently trying to get up to Moldorm, please give them a follow if you haven't already, along with my commentary partner Eudaimonistic and our tracker Semimas.
And double appreciation for Semimas doing this twice in a row. Certainly a lot of randomizer to be keeping track of, and thank you again, Wolfman, for joining me for this cast. It's been pretty fun so far. I'm looking forward to seeing if this is going to go to Game 3 or not. As of right now, Azder's in a position to sweep the series if he can keep this lead.
Alright. Moldorm having nothing except the crystal, but that's probably all we need. And yeah, Azder is leaving. So at this point, we can pretty much go mode Turtle Rock, assuming we can locate all those all-important keys.
Yeah, stinks to be here twice, but at least we were already on the mountain.
And at least we don't have to do the hammer peg puzzle again.
Hey, it's the little things in life, right?
Yeah, we'll take what we can get. So yeah, at this rate, we may have sub 55 minutes.
Yeah, this is the last dungeon before Ganon's Tower. Ganon's Tower, typically, if you were not knowing where you're going necessarily for a big key, could be anywhere from like 7 to 10 minutes depending on your routing. But I can almost assure you that both of these runners will be done with it in about 7. That time window not looking that unrealistic.
Ooh, Chain Chomp's playing nice for Azder. We'll see if Christos is able to pull that off.
We did see that he prefers golf strats in the last race. I'm hoping it works a little bit better this time because he was real close on the last one. And it's a really nice looking strat. There are things to be said about the cane dash, and ChristosOwen is a big proponent. Certainly may fall prey to it sometimes, may be accused of being a numpty for trying it, but you know what, it's fun.
Wait a second, I thought Christos would use cricket strats instead. I kid, but...
Hey, no, that's an international joke, I appreciate that.
Chain Chomp's not playing nice with Christos. Azder going for Lava Chest for a very good reason.
One thing that we may see both of these runners taking heavy advantage of in this dungeon as well as Ganon's Tower is the fact that the stun prize today is in fact a fairy drop, and that could be essential to surviving with such low health. We're looking at 7 and 7 hearts respectively for each of them.
Alright, we are not bothering with Mimic Cave for Azder. We will see if Christos goes for it. I do want to say there was some treasure there, but certainly not essential treasure.
Well, we do see some chat going on about, what it would take to even up this race. I mean, while there is a significant difference within this dungeon specifically, it is not outside of the realm of possibility that some mistakes could even us up. Certainly a bad Armos fight, or, maybe some kind of struggle with, a Ganon's Tower room or two. Keep in mind, Azder does have silvers where Christos doesn't, so it's going to take some pretty serious mistakes to make up the difference, but it's not outside of possibility.
Ganon falls can happen, and they are devastating when they do. Alright, we got a problem. One more key. Laser bridge. Where is it? Oh, right there. Never mind.
And that's such a dangerous laser bridge, though. I mean, even with Cape, if you're just going to try and do the skip to try to avoid the menu, you really can't afford to get hit more than once.
Well, speaking of getting hit, note that Azder did not go through the safety door, which means if Trinex causes problems, Azder's all the way back at the top of Turtle Rock.
Absolutely true. The one saving grace he does have to look forward to is that he does get one extra heart here on his way to the boss room. Most of Trinex's attacks will do 2 hearts of damage with green mail, so he may be able to have an easy time through this, but he does need to be careful.
Alright, 2 of the necks are down. Christos is trying to hurry up. And once we see the... Go ahead.
Oh, with an exceptional 1 cycle Trinex, that's definitely a steep hill to climb at this point.
Uh-oh. Okay, that is 7 crystals. Now, chat, pay attention carefully. It's not exactly the same game, slightly different rules. We know there are 22 item locations in Gannis Tower, but do not use numbers. Give me the specific room, and if the room has more than 1 chest, give me the specific chest.
Yep, folks, where is that Gen's big tower? Gen's big key in the tower? Of course, we know where it's at, but I actually did not check it in the log myself. I think that's actually probably a good commentator habit to make. Have you already looked at it?
I did, but I forgot where it was. Now, I specifically need a chest location. Numbers will not count today.
I'm calling Bob. I called Bob last race. I was wrong. It was actually Ice Armos last race on the left side. So we'll see. Unfortunately, no actual game to be played. The bots aren't that sophisticated yet. We'll see if Synac can make a change to that. Don't put too much pressure on him. He's got to run a tournament.
Yeah. And before we transition, I'm just going to say Dark Magician bottom left, and now betting ends. Starting off in Hope Room with... It's the chest on the right in Hope Room. Who got it? Let me take a look. Let me take a look.
That is the most optimal possible configuration.
And I have to give the award to Kelly Kenzaroy. Hopefully I said that correctly. With that in mind, Callie, you have basically won yourself... where is my standard prize? There is my standard prize. You have won yourself a lifetime of Randomizer seeds. Now you too can play Link to the Past Randomizer to your heart's content. You can deal with Enemizer, Entrance Shuffle, Key Sanity, Retro, Standard, Open, all sorts of combinations to your choosing. Just go to ALTTPR.com and generate your chaotic seeds today. Offer will stay valid until the next major version, not available in Nebraska.
Well, you know, I was also considering maybe rewarding them with some spoilers as to how this race will end, but unfortunately it sounds like we've already spoken for what the prize is today, and we won't be able to change our minds on
that. Next time we do this, if you want to offer the prize, go ahead.
And not a problem, not a problem. I'm just happy to have an opportunity to cast this race, and Azder and ChristosOwen are certainly giving us a show. As a reminder, if you haven't followed them on Twitch, they're definitely worth following. Really good at this game and many others. And it's on display right now. You see Azder absolutely destroying the gauntlet. ChristosOwen already on his way to the gauntlet. They are separated by a handful of rooms and a staircase. This is pretty exciting.
Yep, Azder finishing up the worst part of the gauntlet, Christos entering it.
Spare no worm, absolutely taking advantage of Silver's. Now, if they didn't have half magic, this could potentially be an advantage for Azder as well. Not just the faster fight, but also the ability to not pick up magic for the torches up ahead. But that won't be an issue for either of these runners. Christos, though, has made up a considerable amount of time in this climb, which, for how fast Azder's doing it, is astonishing to me.
Alright, time for 2 more sets of torch rooms. Now, footing here is essential. You do not want to accidentally fail to light that right torch, fall, and then just, well... basically waste a bunch of time. Goodness knows I've done that a number of times, and it's never a good feeling.
Yeah, you may see some runners do a tactical fall just if they're using Lamp, but if you have Fire Rod, you should absolutely avoid it. Azder does need one more key, so a mini Helmasaur will be defeated, and he'll be able to walk all the way through. He's only going to stop to fill up his magic on the last restocker, also known as the last gas station before Ganon, as I like to call it at least. And we'll bop the Moldorm here in just a moment.
Wait a second, Azder didn't fill up at the gas station. Is it possible that Azder prefers the diesel-powered magic?
You know, all things considered, he's got those silvers. He does have more than basically a full magic meter, just a little under.
Christos
he does
didn't
not
have, the
have a fairy. He lost that fairy early in the race.
I forgot about that. Christos has to go up the tower again.
Well, don't be too disturbed, folks. Although he may have numptified himself there, he will hopefully be stricken with some good luck as Azder finishes up Aga 2. Potentially has a fall or two. That would definitely help him even it out.
But first, we have to take care of our geometry lessons. Oh, that was a wonderful triple.
Excellent Aga 2 fight. That was really well done.
Alright, all we have to do now is fly on over to the Big Pig, learn about some words of wisdom, and then try to wrap this up in sub 55.
So for those of you who are in the tournament watching, this is possibly a really good teaching moment for the rest of the tournament. We saw that Christos is stopping at the restock room, which is kind of a normal strategy if you have low health walking through Ganon Ball Z. But we do, in fact, have a stun prize of a fairy, and so if you have an opportunity to check your spoiler logs as you're starting your race, that may be something worth taking a closer look at, as that probably would have saved him here.
Also, I have never seen that word of wisdom from Ganon at all. Glad to know that he's willing to actually talk about, well, the parts of himself, I guess.
Well, Ganon's also in the spoiler mood, so, you know, we naturally had to see him with different text, and I really applaud the admins of this tournament for adding their own extra little flair to it. It's certainly nice to see that the ROM hacking community has some creativity.
Alright, we are almost at the 4th phase of Ganon, which means 4 silver arrows away. There's a 1. Oh, surprise second hit there. I didn't think that was gonna hit because of the torch. But now,
well,
Azder, go ahead.
Well, with that, he'll be able to finish up the Ganon fight, and shortly here we'll be able to get official SRL time. This should wrap up the series.
Yeah, just has to cross that bridge, and ding! Azder has finished with an official SRL time, minus the 15-minute study time of 53 minutes, 18 seconds. Get your GGs out in chat, folks.
I'd also like to add a remark. Azder did add a comment to his SRL log here. He said Kyong would have sub 50'd this seed, and I think a lot of us in the community can feel that comment. If you guys haven't seen him, Kyong's kind of a monster. He's amazing.
Alright, Christos filling up, and ready to deal with Moldorm. Meantime, let's see if Kyong wants to join for an interview.
You mean Azder? I'm sorry.
Azder,
I
you got me doing it!
That's my fault. Although Kyong is in this tournament, so that is something that we will be able to look forward to, and he's also a top-tier contender to be looking out for. This round of 32, this is one of the first matchups between racers that's going to finish up in this tournament, but we have a lot of spoiler log ahead of us. While the round of 32 is definitely the busiest part of the schedule, we have a veritable ton of other races on the schedule. As of right now, actually, we won't have a Game 3 between Azder and Christos, of course, but today we also had Nimban versus GamerCal doing their triple header, or not their triple header, they did a double header today. They should be finishing up that pretty soon. We also have tomorrow F. Coughlin versus Pika Pals at 9:45 p.m. We'll have 11:30, and these are Eastern time I'm referring to. We'll also have 11:30 p.m. OS 101 versus Chelsea Lynn, which will be an interesting matchup to see as well.
But we also have our winner here, azder, GG.
GG. This seeding, lol.
Congratulations, man. How do you feel, about your decisions that you made so far? I mean, I feel like there's a lot of really good ones and maybe a couple of missteps. You want to expound on things you thought maybe it might have been a misstep?
The only real misstep is completely forgetting about Book before going to T-Rock. I think everything else I pretty much intended. So this was like super clean for me. I felt really good about it. But it was also very short, so I was afraid that even that one mistake with the Book might have cost me.
It was definitely closer in the first race in that regard. 2-minute gap there, and Christos is about to finish his Ganon fight here shortly. One thing that was the difference between the two of you, and really the only major difference in this race as far as total collection goes, was the silvers. That was a massive time save for you. So I wanted to ask you a little bit, obviously we don't want you to reveal all of your secrets when it comes to parsing the spoiler log, but I get the feeling there's a few things you look for first when you look at that spoiler log. Is there anything that really pokes out to your mind that's a must-find item in every race?
Let's see. So game 1, I was kind of rusty on my method, and I took horrible notes, and I didn't group things by location, which is why I forgot, I did stuff like forgetting half magic. But generally, when I start, I look for what my Dark World access is. So I look at where swords, hammer, gloves, and pearl are, and then so if there's stuff on Death Mountain, I might look for hookshot or mirror. So I kind of work from there, and then I kind of glance over each dungeon to see if there's anything important in them, and then the rest kind of goes by feel. I kind of piece together what seems important or relevant from there, because every seed starts out different. So once you can hammer at the start, then it's a lot easier to figure out what the most efficient way to plan is.
So that does conclude your series, but you do have another series coming up with between the victor of Zelda Desan and Quiz Bowl. Also want to point out, as I just cut off Wolfman, Christos did just finish up his, right?
That is correct. Official SRL time minus study time of 57 minutes, 36 seconds.
We'll see if we can get him in for the interview as well. Looking forward, though, azder, are you feeling that one of your two potential opponents is a bigger worry in your mind? Are you concerned at all about your bracket going forward?
Okay, so Zelgadison, I have a losing record against him in tournament 1-4. But a lot of it is because whenever we get paired up for tournament matches, we just get the most awful seeds, and they end up being seeds that I'm really bad at handling. So we'll see how spoiler log changes that, but I expect to get something awful against him. Quiz Bowl, I kind of assume Zelga's advancing, to be honest, because he's a much stronger player. But yeah, if he advances, I would be worried about it in terms of like superstition mainly, and he did do very well in the qualifiers, but I think I can beat most people in this tournament, so.
That's fair enough, and just for context regarding what we were saying about those two, Zelga is the 3rd seed in this tournament, Quiz Bowl the 30th, so I mean there's definitely something to be said in that regard. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the rest of your run, and if you do manage to come out victorious against your next opponent, you have a potential race against PKR, Pink Kitty Rose, or maybe even OS or Chelsea Lynn. A lot of pretty well-known names in the community, pretty good at the game as well. So I'm really excited.
Sorry to cut you off, but speaking of PKR, PKR is one of the only people that predicted me to win this race. I ruined pretty much everyone else's bracket.
She's a smart one.
You're not wrong. And she's not wrong either.
So Christos is interested in joining shortly. Just have to give him a few moments.
Yeah, that
And
actually is
also-
something worth clarifying. We don't have a stream delay in this tournament.
It would kind of make it a little difficult for the purpose of, spoiler open when we have access to almost every trick in the book here. But anyway, there was at least one thing I wanted to ask. Azder, are you at least glad that you didn't have to pull your second sword from the pedestal?
I don't really care, honestly.
It was definitely an interesting thing to see when we were looking at the spoiler log. For those of you in the chat who aren't familiar with how this kind of works for us in our end, the commentary crew does also see the spoiler log at the same time as the racers. And when we saw the Master Sword pedestal had a sword upgrade, we all get a little bit excited as viewers. As a racer, I don't think anybody would ever be happy about that. But it's been a little while since I played NMG. I think that's a good sign for me personally.
I think Chris. Someone needs to send Chris the invite because
I know why. I'm taking care of it.
Yeah, his Discord's not in the database, I think.
No, it's because we forgot to hit a button.
Oh. I still think his Discord's not in the database.
It's in. He's approaching the booth now.
Okay.
And
Speak of the numpty and ye shall arrive.
Yo, what's up?
Alright, I've said that too many times. I'm being harsh on you, but GG, ChristosOwen. That was a fantastic race to watch.
Yo, yeah. I feel like I routed it well. The beginning was a catastrophe of this seed. But overall, I routed okay. A silly death at the top of GT. But I'm not too upset, really. Seemed like Az played really well.
So, in the end, as both of you were approaching Turtle Rock, Christos, you were only behind execution-wise by about 20 to 30 seconds. You had excellent routing skills in the end. Though, not counting the, unfortunate death at the top of Ganon's Tower, I'm curious about your rationale regarding the silver arrows.
Silvers, they were in Skullwood's big chest, right?
No, they were in the big key chest. That got me a little bit too.
Oh, well, that was my rationale. I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I looked at Big Key, and it was in the bridge room at the final part of Skullwoods, and I was like, well, there's no way I'm going back to get the Big Key after Mothula, and then going back to the big chest. I was like, that's just going to cost more time than spinning Ganon. But I just misread the spoiler.
It does show, though, the kind of execution that the two of you have. I mean, I know that both of you have run low percent at some point, definitely a lot of NMG. It's interesting, because, when we watch you do a Ganon fight, I saw you go for that really aggressive extra spin, right before you lit the torch. That's something gutsy that a lot of people won't do, and it speaks to the caliber of runners in this tournament. Even though it's only 32 people, I mean, we got some pretty high caliber, racers in here, and it was definitely a pleasure to actually get a chance to see you participate in this, Christos. I know that you have a very profound understanding of the logic of this game, and it was fun to see it on display.
Yeah, thanks. Biggest unfortunate thing for me is the tournaments is such a busy time for me, so I haven't been able to do any practice or really play the game for a long time. So I was pretty rusty. I did a lot of silly mistakes. So I'd love to see another one of these, another tournament, another time. Hopefully, when I have a bit more free time. But it was fun. I'm glad I joined.
And speaking of that, this tournament actually does have a mechanism for practicing these spoiler log races. For those of you out there who are interested in it, there was a link just posted in chat that'll lead you to the Discord, and you can actually generate practice seeds for yourself. For those of you who want to kind of, explore this format and didn't get a chance to participate in this tournament, I get the feeling a lot of people are going to want to demand this tournament again, either later in the year or maybe next year.
And then you folks at home can also get the 6 cards per stage and... Wait. Stop with the McKids jokes.
Well, I wanted to ask you, since we had you here, Christos, what have you got coming up next for you? I believe you have a bronze match coming up in SMBR?
No. I don't have anything. This is the only tournament.
Oh, I'm mixing you up with Gamercal. I'm sorry, man. That's my fault.
Oh, that's
what
okay.
Coming up next, since we do.
Yeah, they're playing at the same time, so I can see why you'd get us mixed up.
No, that's dumb. But I meant to ask you, what do you have coming up since we do have you on the mic?
Unfortunately, nothing at all. So I work as a maths tutor, and it's exam season, so I'm pretty much just working solidly at the moment. So I'm not able to stream until May or June. So I will not be around, sadly.
Sometimes you need the time to, kind of get things in order, and, I certainly do. I think I just had an IRL bonk just now.
That's all good. My biggest I knew the stun prize was fairies in that seed when I was climbing up GT, so I was like, I'll heal if I need to, and then I just accidentally stood in the spike 2 extra times in the mini helmet room, and then I was dead.
Certainly bold for both of you to go 7 hearts throughout the seed, and then that's something that I think a lot of people viewing this might not necessarily see, and when they're watching the races, this is an extremely challenging way to play the game. 59 items, good lord.
What did my opponent get?
54, but even then, I mean, you guys are nuts.
That was definitely improved from the first attempt. I picked up way too much stuff in the first one. What I'd suggest to anyone who wants to do this is to actually practice, because the first game I did here was the first time I tried it in 15 minutes, because I just didn't have the time to do any practice in 15 minutes, and it showed. I didn't write down specific chests in rooms, and I actually in the first seed, since we didn't talk about it, my mistake in that was after beating Aghanim, I was going to go to Hype Cave to get the mirror then, and then got to Death Mountain. And it didn't occur to me until I was on the screen with the hammer pegs in the Dark World, East Dark World, that I couldn't get to Hype Cave. And then I was like, oh wait, so that threw a spanner into my route completely. So I was like, whoa, how do I get... I was like, what do I do? And it took me a little while to think, okay, well, hookshot's in pod. I need hookshot to then do the loop. I hadn't noticed that until that exact moment. And then I was like, oh, well, now I don't have any rupees for Valors of Darkness. And I was like, where can I go get rupees? So that lost me a few minutes in the first seed. That was a pretty dumb mistake.
That set of circumstances is pretty rough.
Yeah, I mean, it's my own fault. I should know that you need the hammer to get to Hype Cave from beating Aghanim.
Yeah. I forgot the Moon Pearl at first, but that's a more minor mistake. It's not too... doesn't waste too much time to go back to the portal. This was a hell of a round 1 matchup, though. We both kind of last minute did our qualifiers and kind of probably got underseeded.
Yeah, well, I think I definitely did. I think if I had more time to actually practice and keep my skills up, I could have done better. So hopefully next time I will. But congratulations, you must have, you did, obviously played pretty damn well. So
yeah, thank you.
You definitely deserve to have gone through, I think. Honestly, the start of Seed 2 was a catastrophe for me. I wasted a good 2 minutes at the start. I didn't realize there was bombs in Blind's hideout, so I went to the Lost Woods to get bombs. And then I wasted 1. It was just really poorly routed. And I picked up 600 rupees that I didn't need for anything. I was like, what am I doing? So after the first 5 minutes, I kind of was like, okay, well, the rest of my route is pretty good. I just really need to work on routing the beginnings, because I don't really have... Well, I just didn't find I had enough time. After I did, the macro route, I had about 30 to 60 seconds left on both attempts. So then I was like, well, what do I do? And I kind of just didn't do anything with my final minute. And then with dungeons, I was just routing them as I was getting to them. I don't know if that's what you were doing as well. For the keys and stuff. When I was on my way to pod, I would just scroll down to pod and be like, okay, where are the keys?
I did those last in my overall routing. But I tried to... I don't know. I didn't prioritize it. I prioritized it a lot more in the first seed, and it ate away a lot of important time that I should have been using to route other things, so that's why that was such a mess.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think I just need to skill set, though. I mean, that you guys are able to make these decisions on the fly. I mean, this is something that's underrated. A lot of people really struggle to even, play the game to this kind of proficiency, let alone actually make those routing decisions. It's something that I think has really been instrumental in keeping, this part of Rando fresh. And it's really exciting to be on the forefront of that. Both of you guys obviously very well involved in this community. So, I mean, this is an absolute treat for me to get to cast and to watch. And, folks, if you're out there and you haven't seen these guys, I don't know how you haven't. If you haven't at this point, I'm a follower here on Twitch. These guys are definitely worth watching. Speaking of that, the rest of this tournament will be here on the Speed Gaming channels. We're on Speed Gaming 4, of course, today, but all of them, Speed Gaming through 6, are worth following if you want to keep up on all of the possible matches. There are, of course, schedule links as well available based on the hash or the exclamation spoiler command in chat. And this is, of course, just round of 32 within this tournament. Some of the races have made it into round of 16. This will probably be a pretty quick tournament in that regard. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the rest of the races for it. I think we've pretty much covered everything I wanted to ask on my end. Wolfman, do you have any other questions for these two?
I do not. You handled that, wonderfully. So I was just preparing the normal admin-based announcements in the background.
Are there any? Go ahead if there are.
Just minor calendar updates, what to watch, that sort of stuff. That's all.
Yeah, go ahead.
Alright, so if you want to stick around here on Speed Gaming 4 in about 10 minutes, we should have the Super Metroid Prodigy Tournament. And it looks to be a quad matchup, a Makotroid versus Mai Suguya, I'm sure I butchered that, and BF Robber versus Bullseye. Speed Gaming, the main channel, will have at 5 p.m. the Link to the Past Randomizer League, involving Old Swagga Jackson versus Blinds Bandoliers. Interesting team names. Right now on Speed Gaming 2, the Soul Blazer Randomizer Tournament is going on. I want to say that is actually the finals. Speed Gaming 3, we have, as mentioned, the other spoiler log matchup right now for Link to the Past Rando, James FNX versus Gordo on my list. And Speed Gaming 5, if we haven't already wrapped up Ninban versus GamerCal, check it out. Otherwise, 5:30 p.m., the Link to the Past Randomizer Weekly Open Race. Please follow twitch.tv/speedgaming along with Speed Gaming 2 through 6, and do not forget about our foreign language restreams available in Spanish, French, Portuguese, and is it Dutch or German? Deutsch, German, right. I do not want to mix
Close
them
enough.
up right now.
Although they're not really the same.
I know they're not. I should know I work for a Danish company.
Fair enough. But it's been an absolute pleasure to share the mic with you, Wolfman 2000. Of course, we do want to say thanks to Semimus. I think I've probably mispronounced that 6 times today, for tracking for us. And, looking forward to seeing everything else in this tournament. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We do have just a moment here since we have a couple minutes before that race. Azder, Christos, anybody you guys want to shout out?
Yeah. Well, thanks PKR for being one of, I think, 2 people that predicted me to win. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this back. I'm sure the puns will make my day.
Oh man!
I just want to shout out Synak and Kern and everyone else involved in organising it. It's been a very smoothly run tournament and some really cool features. So it's been really fun to be a part of. And well done again.
Well, it's been a pleasure and a privilege. I think that's pretty much everything we got today for the spoiler log series that we just aired on this channel. I've been Eudaimonistic, joined today by Wolfman 2000. We're signing off. Folks, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next seed.
Watch out for mold orms and stay tuned for the Super Metroid Prodigy Tournament here on this station.